Welcome to Beyond the Needle, the Aesthetics Business Podcast. Each week, I'm here to share real, actionable strategies and bring on expert guests to help you level up, attract more patients, and build a standout brand. Let's turn your passion into a thriving business together. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Needle podcast. And in today's episode, I am going to be dripping in some kind of mindset focused episodes that I think will help explore the things that can hold us back as business owners and give you clear actionable steps in order to move forward with clarity and break some of those mindset blocks that might be otherwise holding you back. And today I'm going to talk about procrastination. And I think this is a really big one for lots of business owners out there. And we all do it. We push tasks to the last minute. We scroll endlessly instead of tackling what's in front of us or convincing ourselves that we'll be more productive later. Or we'll do it when we have time, which we never end up having because we're busy juggling a lot of things at once. And then we shame ourselves for being lazy and the negative self-talk spirals. But in this episode, I want to get into why procrastination isn't really about laziness. It's a deeply ingrained behaviour with psychological roots, and avoiding it is a skill that you can learn and practice and get better at. So we're going to break down why we procrastinate and the science behind it, and most importantly, how to overcome it with practical, actionable strategies that you can get into your everyday so that you stop spending so much time procrastinating and then getting annoyed at yourself about it, and you actually start doing the things that are going to move the needle in your business and move you closer to your goals. If you do enjoy this episode, please follow my podcast on whatever app you're listening on, and don't forget to leave me a little review as well. It really means a lot to me. Okay, now let's get into the nitty-gritty of the episode. So procrastination is something that we all experience. Yet it's one of the most frustrating habits to break. We know we should be working on something, but we find ourselves stuck in a loop of delay and distraction. It's easy to think procrastination is about being lazy and we just suck at time management from time to time. But in reality, overcoming it is much more about emotional management than time management. Research that I will get into later, and I've done a lot of research for this episode, it's something that fascinates me because I can be a serial procrastinator, especially when I'm doing something that I really care about, which is ironic because I really care about it, but I put it off. And I think this is what a lot of people do because we want to do it when we feel like we can do it perfectly. And as we all know, when we take a step back and actually look at things with logic, we know that we're never going to be able to do something 100% perfectly. It's better that we just get started and do something rather than nothing at all. But the truth of the matter is, procrastination is driven by fear of failure, fear of not meeting expectations, or even fear of success and the responsibility that might come with it. Essentially, we avoid tasks because they trigger discomfort and our brains choose short-term relief over long-term benefits. So it's a bit of a tough pill to swallow that actually it was the fear of holding you back all along. But just like confidence or communication or public speaking, all of those other things that we have to get good at as business owners, overcoming procrastination is a skill, one that you can develop with the right strategies and frameworks. And there is nothing I love more than a strategy or a framework. So before we get into these frameworks, I want to get into the data because the more we know about something, the more empowered we are to actually deal with it. We know procrastination is pretty negative. I feel like I don't need to tell you that a study published in the Journal of Psychological Science found that procrastination is linked to higher stress levels and lower overall well-being. That would just be kind of rubbing salt in the wound at this point. But I am going to unpick some of the data behind procrastination so that we can really understand what's going on in our minds when we do this, so that we can challenge that behaviour more effectively. Now, procrastination is very different from giving yourself time to think. So many of us are so busy now that we time block our schedules out to infinity, leaving ourselves with very little time to process or be creative, or to have the kind of ideas that you can only have when you're not meant to be working on another task. That kind of blue sky problem-solving thinking needs to be protected and is very different from procrastination, which, for me at least, is usually characterised by negative thinking, putting things off, making a lot of excuses in my head, and then that kind of negative spiral coming back around time and time again. And on the subject of these negative emotions, as I was researching for this episode, there was a moment when kind of everything clicked into place. And it was when I found research from Dr. Tim Pitchell that explained that the negative thinking I was talking about wasn't just the result of my procrastination, it was actually the cause of it. Pitchell essentially explains that the main reason we put off tasks is because they make us feel uncomfortable, and as humans, we're programmed to avoid general discomfort and to seek instant gratification instead. Hence why you might pick up your phone and start scrolling when you're supposed to be working on a task from your to-do list. This isn't totally a new idea. In 2001, there was a study at the Case Western Reserve University in Ohio where participants were encouraged to feel sad by reading sad stories and then given the opportunity to prepare for an intelligence test or watch videos and play games. They found that the sad stories made them more likely to choose the fun, short-term relief of the games rather than the productive option of preparing for the test. Pitchell calls this the giving in to feel good effect, and it's something that builds over time. Every time we avoid a task and scroll through TikTok or go and stare at the open fridge for 10 minutes, that habit of avoidance is reinforced. Your body knows where to go for relief and is more likely to do that time and time again. And this is only made so much harder by the fact that instant gratification is easier to access than ever. Whether it's a TikTok scroll, a Deliveroo order, a Netflix binge, we have so many options for temporary good feelings at our fingertips. So there's no wonder why we're procrastinating more too. This is all linked to a well-respected theory called temporal motivation, which was coined by Piers Steele in 2007. It sounds complicated at first because it's based on this equation, and bear with me here. Motivation equals expectancy times value over 1 plus impulsiveness times delay. Now, I know that sounds insanely confusing, but just to simplify it, Steele means that procrastination happens when we weigh our tasks based on 4 factors. 1, expectancy, how much we believe we'll succeed. 2, value, how much we care about the task. 3, impulsivity, how easily we get distracted. And 4, delay, how far away the reward or consequence feels. So according to Steele, the trick to overcoming procrastination for a task that you care about is to 1, increase the expectancy, also known as self-belief, and reduce impulsivity, also known as avoiding distraction. It's the first one in that list, expectancy, that I want to zoom in on for a second, because what Steele is saying here is that if you don't believe you'll succeed at a task, you're going to put it off and ultimately feel worse in the long run. Now, I thought about this a lot in my research, as I think it's a really good example of why manifestation has so many fans, even from people who don't necessarily see themselves as manifestation fans, including me. So when you create a vision board or you tell yourself certain affirmations in the morning, you're essentially increasing your expectancy for that task, encouraging your self-belief, and not only improving your outlook, but making yourself more productive in the long run. Now, some other research that I looked into explains that for the majority of the time we procrastinate, the tasks that we procrastinate on are not pleasant ones. They're not fun ones. They're the things we find unpleasant, boring, tedious, stressful, anxiety-provoking, frustrating, the whole range of negative emotional and aversive states. As human beings, we don't generally like being in an aversive state unless we feel it has some purpose or course. So when you have this unpleasant feeling about this task that you have to do, you either manage those emotions internally and find ways to regulate them. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. And I'm going to talk about some of these in this episode. Or if you have difficulty doing that because of your circumstances, because of lack of prior experience or lack of some sort of skill development in the area of emotion regulation, you use procrastination then as a means to manage those emotions. And so what happens when you've got this unpleasant task that's really making you feel stressed and frustrated and anxious, you take that task, you disengage from it, you put it aside, you tell yourself you'll come back to it later, and immediately you feel relief because you've just regulated your emotions, albeit not in a healthy way, because those emotions are likely to come back next time you sit down and think about that task. And when, of course, you've got quick access to, the phone, social media, Netflix, snacks in the kitchen, it makes it easier to get distracted. So what you're doing with those things is you're allowing yourself to shift from an unpleasant state by distracting yourself and focusing on something more positive. And people will often find other things to do that actually aren't very pleasant when they're procrastinating. And I do this all the time. So, you have a task that you really need to get done, you need to get done, but you're procrastinating, and you end up cleaning your office or your kitchen instead, or just doing whatever it takes to make you feel like you're being productive, because you're not being productive by doing that task that you're avoiding in that moment, but you're still doing something, so it gives you that sense of accomplishment, when, the priority right now isn't for me to clean my office or to do a food shop online. the priority right now is getting that task done that I need to get done. But I feel like I've accomplished something because I've got a clean office or I've got the food order ticked off of my to-do list, but actually that wasn't the priority at the moment. So a lot of the research that I read spoke about the importance of recognizing the source of those negative emotions. So is it perfectionist fears of failure or of the outcome of whatever it is that you're doing not being as good as what you hope it would be because you have limited time? Is it doing emotional time traveling and thinking ahead about a task that you've not done before, but you're now imagining, oh, this is going to be so difficult and really hard, and it's going to take so much time, and I don't even know where to start. I just can't deal with that right now. So scientists call that effective forecasting, and a lot of the science on that topic suggests that we're actually really bad at predicting our future emotional states, so we tend to overblow them. And when we experience that, it's important that we step back and contextualize them and remember all the times that we've coped with similar things in the past and the outcomes of those, which are probably not half as bad as you thought. And a lot of it too is just our own self-criticism, because we are in a society that really values productivity. Everything's about being more productive, getting more done, being your best self and all of those types of things. And if you feel like you're transgressing those social norms, it leads to feelings of guilt and shame. And so when you're procrastinating, you start feeling guilty and you start feeling ashamed, and that adds another layer of negative emotions on top of existing negative emotions. And then we get stuck in that procrastination cycle even more. So the key is, when you find yourself procrastinating and feeling guilty about it and in that spiral of negative self-talk, stepping back and realizing, yeah, I'm not the first person who's ever procrastinated. I'm not happy about it. And instead of getting caught up in all those negative emotions and that shame and that guilt, taking a step back and thinking, how can I fix this? Because we need to dial down that self-critical voice and that inner critic that actually dials up those very negative emotions that are driving the procrastination in the first place. So this brings us to the key lesson of today's episode. Overcoming procrastination isn't just about willpower. It's about 1, creating better habits, 2, learning to manage discomfort, and 3, building mental resolve and self-belief. So we're going to get into exactly how to do that. So part 1, creating better habits. Now, we know why we procrastinate, so let's talk about how to actually stop doing it. And as I mentioned, we're doing this in 3 parts. So number 1, probably the most important one, is learning how to create better habits. Now, this is a harsh truth. You won't even get to the point of procrastinating about a task you want to do if you don't schedule it into your calendar and find time to actually do it. Whilst bad time management might not be the root cause of procrastination, good time management is a 10 out of 10 strategy for tackling it. So for me, that looks like looking at my schedule every morning and picking 3 to 4 non-negotiable tasks that I need to get done that day. I then block these tasks into my calendar like I would a meeting or appointment. And then once these tasks are in my calendar, I time block out the rest of my day based on my to-do list and according to my priorities. So for you as a clinic owner, this might look slightly different, because you might have, hopefully you have, your admin days where you can focus on the business itself rather than working in the business. But a lot of your time in clinic is probably going to be focused around treating your patients, and you're not going to have hours spent at a desk working on, doing those things that you need to be doing to move your business forwards. So this is where time management becomes even more important. So you need to kind of look at things from a bird's eye view and then map that into a monthly to-do list, and then a weekly to-do list, and then a daily to-do list. So what do you need to get done this month in order to take your business to the next level, to help your business grow, to take it where you want it to go? And how can you split those tasks over the course of the month? So that's about looking at your calendar, looking at your diary, looking at your admin days, and time blocking where you can times for you to spend doing those tasks that you need to be doing in order to move your business forwards. So if you have a Wednesday as your admin day and you don't see patients on that day, yes, you're going to have lots of things that you probably need to do that are essential within the business, for example, ordering stock or dealing with emails and inquiries and things like that. But you also want to make sure you're time blocking in some time to do those tasks that you need to be doing to move your business forward. So whether that is creating social media content, writing an email newsletter, doing some work on your website, or looking for somebody to do some work on your website, whatever it is, you need to make sure you put those things in your calendar so that you actually find time to do them. And if you can, and I know this might not be doable for everybody, but for things that you really don't like doing, For example, for many people, filming social media content. Put that into your diary for first thing in the morning. Maybe try and get to clinic half an hour, 45 minutes earlier than you normally would to film that content, because your brain is feeling most fresh and you're least likely to enter a procrastination cycle. So the next step is learning to manage discomfort and do it anyway. This essentially means training your brain away from the reinforced avoidance that you've been giving it through distraction and procrastination. You're tricking your body into steering away from wanting short-term gratification at every step, and instead learning that delayed gratification is what really gives you long-term fulfillment. So there are plenty of ways to do this on a short-term level. Mel Robbins swears by counting down from 5 and then taking action. So this is definitely something that helps when I'm procrastinating getting out of bed, which I struggle with a lot, especially in the winter when it's really, really dark. Or even going to bed, for example, if I find like I'm scrolling a lot on my phone. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you just do it. Some people find it helpful to break down a task into micro steps, for example. So instead of thinking about writing an entire report or an entire blog post or filming 10 videos for your social media, think about it step by step. Think about it by section of the overall blog post that you're writing, or one part of the process at a time. Others might find the 10-minute rule works. So where you say to yourself, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes and then I will allow myself to stop. There are so many different tactics you can use, and I use a lot of these on a daily basis. Just because I've got my calendar time blocked and my priorities clear, that doesn't mean my brain isn't also in need of a kick up the arse when it comes to actually getting going sometimes. So having these strategies and testing out different strategies and finding what works for you is really, really important. And all of these frameworks are based on something called the Zeigarnik effect, which was coined back in the 1920s. And this describes the mental tension that is created in our brains when we leave a task unfinished. This tension means that once you start a task, like writing a book, for example, and you just write one sentence, you are much more likely to finish it than if you'd written nothing at all. So it's basically a scientific justification for saying just start. So, for example, when it comes to filming content for social media, which I'm sure is like the number one thing that a lot of you listening will be procrastinating on, a good way of getting this started is by writing yourself a plan, just writing down 5 videos that you want to record and maybe a few bullet points for each for what you want to say in each of those. Once you've got that down, it kind of feels like, going back to that Zeigarnik effect, you have started the task, so you're more likely to finish it, but also you've kind of brain dumped, you've got it out of your head, and you're going to feel much easier about actually going and getting those filmed now that they're not just ideas living in your head anymore that you're thinking about over and over. And then there's part 3, which is building self-belief. This is the most important step of all to avoid procrastination and the hardest one to master. All of the tips I've given now are essentially coping mechanisms to avoid feelings of procrastination once they start. But if you actually want to get to the root cause, you need to tackle that self-belief we spoke about earlier. You need to believe that you can actually succeed in a task because it's worthwhile and you see your own value in doing that for yourself. Now, it's important to disclaim here, I'm obviously not a psychologist, but I am somebody who has dealt a lot with procrastination before in the past, negative self-talk, lack of self-esteem, imposter syndrome, all of those types of things. And I have listened to a lot of podcasts about this. I've watched a lot of videos about this. I've read a lot of books about it, and I've done a lot of reading about it in general. And I've applied the things that I've learned into my own life to learn what really works and what actually helps me move forwards with the things that I find difficult, so that I stop holding myself back in business and in other areas of my life. So I want to talk about 3 tried and tested techniques that I found that have actually improved my own self-belief. Number 1 is about reframing your self-talk. So much procrastination in general comes from when you negatively talk to yourself. So telling yourself you can't do this task, or you're insane to think this idea will actually pay off. If you sense yourself starting to think like this, make a concerted effort to recognize it and shift the perspective. It might sound silly, but genuinely looking at yourself in the mirror or saying to yourself, I can do this. This is going to be so good. It's going to be worth it. And imagining the end result of whatever it is that you have to do, if everything goes well, like imagining what doors that could open for you, can get you out of a rut pretty quickly. Number 2 is to prove to yourself that you actually are capable, whether this is rewarding yourself by taking off tasks each day in your planner or allowing a TikTok scroll once you've completed a morning's worth of analysis. Imagine a star chart that you might have had as a kid every time you make your bed or wash the dishes or do a chore in the house. Create one of these for your brain. This associates positive feeling with tasks that are actually going to contribute to long-term gratification, rewiring your thought process around procrastination and ultimately improving your self-worth. And finally, my third tip for self-belief is visualizing your success. I touched on that a moment ago, but there is nothing more powerful than how we can change our outlook by closing our eyes and practicing visualization. The more we tell ourselves we are actually capable of achievements, visualizing ourselves doing them and practicing the feeling of the gain after that long-term gratification, the more likely we are not only to achieve our goals, but to feel better as we work towards achieving them and to procrastinate less. So taking just 5 minutes to visualize yourself achieving a task can save you from hours of procrastinating about whether you're capable of doing that task or some subconscious reason you don't even know why you're procrastinating. I think for a lot of people, the most important first step into improving their self-belief and to shifting those negative habits of procrastination is to slowly build your self-confidence, because there was something that I've read or heard from somebody, I think it was Mel Robbins, who said that every time we tell ourselves we're going to do something and then we don't do it, we're breaking trust in ourselves. We're breaking trust with ourselves. And over time, that really starts to negatively impact our confidence and our self-esteem, because we're telling ourselves, tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this. Tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to film those social media videos. And then when it comes to it, we make excuses and we don't do it. And over time, that really starts to have a knock-on effect on our confidence and our ability to actually do those things. So if this is something that you do a lot to yourself, you need to build back up your confidence and your trust within yourself. And that's not going to be an overnight thing, but just taking one small task that you need to do and telling yourself, I'm going to get that tackled. I'm going to do that this evening, or I'm going to do that tomorrow morning, and actually do it. And then repeating that over and over again, over time, you will start to build confidence within yourself. You'll start to build that trust back up within yourself. And you will start to know internally that, yes, I can do those things because I've done it before. And you can build up to those bigger things, those scarier things over time. And that's it for today's episode on beating procrastination. I hope this has given you some useful tools to start making real progress in how you tackle tasks in business and in your personal life. I feel like I've only really scratched the surface on this topic. So if you want to dive deeper, I will include some of my favourite books and resources on procrastination in the show notes. And do let me know. Come over onto my Instagram, send me a message if there's anything in particular in terms of mindset that you would like to hear more about. I find this area fascinating and I think it has such a profound impact on how we show up in business. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for listening.